My fiancée and her parents insulted my late mother at our rehearsal dinner, so I ended the wedding and took back her stolen locket. I'm 33, and until not long ago, I was engaged to Lydia, a woman I truly believed I'd grow old with. We met 6 years ago at a cookout through some mutual friends. She had this vibrant smile, quick wit, and we hit it off immediately. Proposing a year ago felt like the natural next step. It just felt right. She felt right. But marrying Lydia also meant becoming part of her family. Her parents, Jack and Donna, are the type who need to be the center of attention. They're loud, blunt, and always seem to have an opinion about everything. At first, I thought it was just harmless personality quirks, but over time I saw how their arrogance seeped into every interaction. Still, I never imagined how far it would go until everything unraveled. Before I get into what happened, I need to talk about my mom, Patricia. She was easily the most incredible person I've ever known. 2 years ago, she lost a long, grueling battle with cancer after fighting for 3 tough years. Watching her remain selfless and loving while she endured pain taught me more than any lesson life could offer. She didn't just raise me, she shaped who I am. She had this special ability to help others without making them feel like a burden. She did things quietly, expecting nothing in return. That included Lydia's family. Jack and Donna owe more to my mom than they ever admit. When I first introduced Lydia to her, everything seemed fine. Mom liked her and told me as much. Lydia was polite. But as our relationship got more serious, Lydia's attitude began to shift. It wasn't blatant hostility, more like passive digs. She'd say my mom was too involved or that she tried too hard. It rubbed me the wrong way, but I told myself she just needed time to adjust to being around new family dynamics. What made it harder to stomach was knowing everything my mom had done for her family. Years ago, when Jack and Donna's restaurant was on the brink of closing, my mom co-signed a loan to help them stay afloat. No one else would take that risk, but my mom had faith in them. She helped them organize their budget and showed them how to manage their income better. Thanks to her, their restaurant survived and eventually flourished. Another time, when their industrial oven failed and they couldn't afford a replacement, my mom paid for a brand new one without hesitation. She never asked for repayment, even though she later could have used that money for her own treatment. That's just who she was. And then there was Lydia's older brother, Ryan. He was about to drop out of college because he couldn't afford his final semester. My mom paid his tuition herself. She always said education was a gift that no one could take away from you. She didn't stop at writing checks either. She babysat Ryan's kids so he could study. She offered accounting tips and organizational help to keep their business running smoothly. But not once did any of them offer a real thank you. Sure, they'd say thanks in passing, but never with real sincerity or acknowledgement of how much she sacrificed for them. My mom never cared about that, though. She wasn't interested in praise. She simply wanted to help. When she died, it felt like my entire foundation had crumbled. She meant everything to me, and her loss left a void I'm still learning to live with. Lydia was there with me during that dark time. Or so I thought. In hindsight, most of her support felt performative. She'd say things like, "You need to let go. Your mom wouldn't want you stuck in grief." Maybe that's true, but it didn't feel comforting. It felt cold. As the wedding approached, more red flags started waving. Lydia would always downplay my mom's memory when we talked about the ceremony. I suggested adding a brief tribute to my mom in our vows, just something small to honor her. Lydia immediately brushed it off, saying, "Won't that make the mood sad?" "Weddings are supposed to be happy," she said. I didn't argue, I simply nodded and moved on. But comments like that started to pile up, small jabs that quietly chipped away at the mood. And then came the remarks from Jack and Donna. They had this condescending way of speaking to me, like they believed Lydia was marrying beneath her. Jack once joked that Lydia was upgrading her life by choosing someone from a simpler background. Donna would say things like, "Well, we all make sacrifices for love," as if Lydia was doing me some grand favor by agreeing to marry me. It stung deeply. But I stayed quiet for Lydia's sake. Looking back, I wish I'd spoken up sooner. Maybe I could have saved myself a world of pain. But I kept convincing myself that once we got married, once things settled down, everything would smooth itself out. I couldn't have been more wrong. Things began to truly fall apart about a month before the wedding. Lydia's parents, Jack and Donna, had offered to host the rehearsal dinner at a fancy restaurant they had connections with. Initially, I thought it was a thoughtful gesture. I even told myself maybe they were trying to make up for all the passive digs and awkward tension throughout the wedding planning process. I hoped this was them showing some class at last. But of course, nothing with them came without strings attached. They didn't just offer to host, they constantly reminded everyone how generous they were being. Donna would say things like, "Oh, we've put so much effort into making this dinner flawless. It's going to be the talk of the town." Jack chimed in whenever he could, bragging about how exclusive the restaurant was and how lucky we were to get it. The whole thing reeked of them using the event to boost their own egos rather than celebrate our upcoming marriage. Still, I didn't want to rock the boat. I just wanted to get through the wedding, so I let them take over the rehearsal dinner. That was a mistake. As the date got closer, their behavior only got worse. Every interaction was loaded with passive aggression. When I tried confirming the guest list, Donna rolled her eyes and said, "We've got it covered, Michael. No need to stress over the details. Just show up and enjoy." It was subtle, but I felt completely sidelined, like I didn't have a say in what was supposed to be a shared celebration. Then there was the menu. Donna kept boasting about how they were curating a high-end dining experience and said things like, "We've asked the chef to prepare something truly elegant. Nothing like the meals you'd find back home, Michael." She loved that. Dig. Back home. They never let me forget I came from a small working-class town, every word, every tone, dripping with judgment. I kept brushing it off, trying to stay focused. I told myself, it's one evening, just smile, nod, and get through it. But even Lydia started acting different. She'd always had a tendency to side with her parents, but as we got closer to the wedding, it got worse. Every time I voiced a concern or idea, she'd dismiss it with, "Michael, you're overthinking this. My parents know what they're doing." It wasn't just about the dinner anymore. It was how they made me feel like an outsider in my own relationship, like I should be thankful just to be involved. And Lydia never defended me. Not once. She'd laugh along or ignore me whenever I brought it up. A week before the dinner, something happened that should have made me walk away right then. We were at her parents' house finalizing wedding details. Donna was in full-on control mode, flipping through seating charts and floral options like she was planning some royal gala. I suggested changing the centerpieces to something simpler, something my mom would have loved. Donna didn't even look up. She just said, "Oh, Patricia had interesting taste, didn't she? But this is Lydia's day. Let's keep things modern, shall we?" I froze. It was subtle, yet cutting, a jab at my late mother's memory. And Lydia? She didn't flinch, didn't even look up, just kept scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. I wanted to speak up, to call Donna out on the spot, but I swallowed my pride and stayed silent, not wanting to cause a scene. Looking back, I hate myself for not speaking up. Every insult, every snide remark, it all kept building up, but I kept brushing it aside because I didn't want to start a fight. I thought I was keeping the peace. The day of the rehearsal dinner finally arrived, and the tension was thick. Lydia and I drove there together, and I tried making small talk to ease the mood. She barely responded, eyes glued to her phone. When I asked if she was excited, she just shrugged and said, "It's just a dinner, Michael. Don't stress." Just a dinner. That stung. When we got to the restaurant, Jack and Donna were already there, acting like they owned the place. Jack stood at the entrance, shaking hands with guests like some politician, while Donna barked orders at the staff like she was hosting a gala. The whole thing felt more like a publicity stunt than a family event. The restaurant was ridiculously upscale. White tablecloths, chandeliers, waiters in tuxedos, the kind of place that screamed, "We're important." It made me feel completely out of place. As the room filled up, I started noticing something strange. Nearly everyone there was from Lydia's side. I counted maybe 4 people from my side: my dad, my sister, and 2 close family friends. Everyone else was either her relative or one of her parents' business contacts. It felt like a networking event, not a rehearsal dinner. I pulled Lydia aside and asked, "Why aren't more of my family here?" She gave me an annoyed look and said, "Michael, your family's small. My parents had to fill the room somehow. It's not a big deal." That phrase, "not a big deal," was her go-to for everything. I bit my tongue again and went back to mingling, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't about us at all. It was about Jack and Donna putting on a show. They had hijacked what should have been a heartfelt celebration and turned it into their moment in the spotlight. Then came the speeches. Jack was, of course, the first one to grab the mic. He walked up like he was delivering a keynote address, not giving a toast at his daughter's rehearsal dinner. He started with, "Welcome, everyone. Tonight is about celebrating the union of 2 families, our Lydia and, of course, Michael." He said my name like it pained him. I sat there trying to keep a straight face, but everything out of his mouth was laced with condescension. He went on about how proud he was of Lydia, how she had always been the star of the family, always knew what she wanted. "And now," he said, "she's marrying someone who will keep her grounded." He smirked. A few guests chuckled. I blinked, wondering if I'd really just heard that. Then came a story about Lydia being a high achiever as a kid, and how grateful they were that she had their guidance. "We always taught Lydia to aim high," Jack said, "and while Michael might not be exactly what we envisioned at first." He trailed off, letting the implication hang in the air. I saw my dad and sister glaring at him from across the table. Next up was Donna. She strutted to the mic like she was accepting an award. Her speech began harmlessly enough, gushing about Lydia and how thrilled she was about the wedding. But then came the digs. She called Lydia the perfect daughter who deserves the best in life, and added, "It's a good thing she's so patient. She's already taught Michael so much." I almost choked. What had Lydia taught me? How to keep quiet while her family insulted me? Then Donna turned to me with a smirk and said, "We're so happy to welcome you into the family, Michael. It'll be nice to finally have someone who doesn't mind getting their hands dirty, right?" She laughed. A few of her relatives joined in. I looked at Lydia, hoping she'd be uncomfortable, maybe even stand up for me. But she was laughing, too. And just when I thought things couldn't get more uncomfortable, Jack stood up again. He clinked his glass, tapped the mic, and said, "One last thing before we wrap this up." Then, with a somber tone, he added, "I just want to acknowledge someone who's no longer with us but played a big role in shaping who Michael is. His mom, Patricia." For a brief second, I actually thought he was going to say something heartfelt. But no. He said, "Patricia was one of a kind. She had a habit of inserting herself into situations, didn't she? Always had an opinion about how things should be done." He laughed, and Donna jumped right in. "Oh, she definitely had strong opinions. Remember how she always insisted on helping us even when we didn't ask?" I sat there in shock. They were talking about my mom like she was some nosy neighbor, not the woman who saved their business and supported their family. Jack wasn't done. "But in all seriousness," he said, "Patricia was a generous woman, helped us out a lot. Sometimes too much, if I'm being honest." Then he winked like it was some kind of inside joke. The room went quiet, but Jack kept going. "We'll be sure to keep her spirit alive at the wedding. Let's just hope Michael doesn't inherit her enthusiasm for taking charge, though. We wouldn't want him meddling too much, right?" That was it. My face flushed, fist tight under the table. I turned to Lydia, waiting, hoping she would say something. Anything. But she just laughed and said, "Oh, Dad, stop," like this. It was all some light-hearted moment. Light-hearted? They were mocking my mother's memory in front of everyone. And Lydia thought it was funny. I couldn't believe it. Jack and Donna acted like they were being charming, completely smug. But when I looked around, I saw the discomfort on several faces. People weren't laughing. They were mortified. When Jack finally sat down, the silence in the room was deafening. Then, as if on cue, the clinking of glasses and the scrape of cutlery slowly returned as people awkwardly tried to continue. Lydia leaned over and whispered, "Are you okay?" Like she was asking if I needed more bread, not if I was boiling with rage. I didn't even answer. I just nodded tightly, jaw clenched so hard I thought I might crack a tooth. And then Donna walked over to our table. "Michael," she said sweetly, "I hope you weren't offended. Jack and I just wanted to add a little humor to the evening. It's all in good fun." That's when I snapped. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly across the floor. "Are you serious right now?" I said, my voice low but shaking with fury. The room froze, like someone hit mute on a TV. Every head turned toward me, but I didn't care. My heart thudded in my chest and my face burned, but I wasn't going to let it go this time. "Are you serious?" I repeated, locking eyes with Donna. She went still, caught off guard. Jack looked up from his glass, annoyed. Lydia reached over and whispered, "Michael, stop." But I ignored her. "Let me get this straight," I said, louder now. "You've spent this entire night taking shots at my mom, the woman who bailed your family out when no one else would, and now you're telling me it was a joke? That it's all okay because you were being funny?" Jack leaned back and folded his arms, smirking like this was all beneath him. "Relax, Michael. You're overreacting. It was just in good fun." "Good fun?" I snapped. "You called her meddling, said she was too much, mocked her generosity like it was something to be embarrassed about. How the hell is that good fun?" The air was thick with tension. A few of Lydia's cousins looked down, clearly uncomfortable. My dad across the table was glaring at Jack like he was about to explode. My sister sat with her arms crossed, her face hard as stone, eyes locked on Donna. Donna let out a fake little laugh. "Oh, Michael, don't be so sensitive. We were just sharing stories. Everyone knows how Patricia liked to take charge." "Take charge?" I echoed, my voice cracking with anger. "She helped you. She saved your business when it was about to go under. She paid for your oven repairs, your patio upgrade, your son's last semester of college. And this is how you repay her? Turning her into some joke at your daughter's rehearsal dinner?" Jack leaned forward, his smirk gone. "All right, that's enough," he said, his voice low and firm. Then after a beat, he added with a sharp edge, "If you're going to make a scene over a joke, maybe you're not ready for marriage." That one sentence showed me exactly how little Jack respected me. Or my mother, for that matter. Lydia finally spoke up, gently tugging on my sleeve. "Michael, can we just go outside and talk, please?" she asked quietly. I pulled my arm away. "No, Lydia, we can't. Not until your parents understand how disrespectful they've been." Donna let out a loud, dramatic sigh, like she was the one being wronged. "Michael, this is supposed to be a happy occasion. You're ruining the evening for everyone." "I'm ruining it?" I asked, my voice trembling with fury. "No, Donna, you ruined it the second you mocked my mother in front of everyone. And Lydia," I said, turning toward her, "you just sat there and let it happen." Lydia's cheeks flushed. "I didn't know they were going to say all that," she said defensively. "But you laughed?" I snapped. "You laughed at every single insult. You didn't even try to stop them." At that point the whispers began. Guests leaned toward one another, murmuring about the drama unraveling before their eyes. I could feel their eyes on me, but I didn't care. This wasn't about them, it was about standing up for the one person who always stood up for me. My mom. Jack stood abruptly, clearly done with the conversation. "All right, Michael, if you're so offended, maybe you should leave," he said, gesturing toward the door. For a second I considered it. Maybe it'd be easier to walk out and leave them to their self-congratulatory dinner. But then I looked around and saw my dad, my sister, and a few close friends, people who came to support me. They were all watching, waiting. I couldn't let this slide. "No," I said firmly. "I'm not leaving. Not until you understand what you've done." Jack opened his mouth to reply, but I cut him off. "You act like my mom was some meddling busybody, but without her, you wouldn't even have this restaurant. She didn't help you for recognition. She helped because she cared. And now you're mocking her like she's a joke? That's not just rude, it's disgusting." The room went dead silent again. Even Jack looked thrown off, unsure how to respond. Donna opened her mouth but couldn't form words. Lydia just sat there, eyes glued to the table, her face a mixture of shame and resentment. Finally, Jack muttered, "We didn't mean it like that." "It doesn't matter how you meant it," I replied coldly. "What matters is how it came across. You don't get to rewrite who my mom was just to fit your little narrative. She deserved better, and honestly, so do I." With that, I stepped back from the table and grabbed my coat. "You want me to leave? Fine. But don't expect me to come back." My dad stood up immediately, ready to follow. My sister grabbed her purse and threw one last seething look at Donna before joining us. A couple of my friends hesitated, then rose to follow as well. Lydia called out behind me, "Michael, wait!" But I didn't turn around. I walked out of that restaurant with my head high, even though my chest was tight, and my heart was thudding like a drum. Outside, my dad placed a hand on my shoulder. "You did the right thing," he said softly. "Your mom would be proud." I nodded, but pride was the last thing I felt. All I felt was betrayal and anger, and a growing realization, if Lydia couldn't stand up for me or my mother, maybe she wasn't the person I thought she was. Part of me believed I'd done the right thing by walking out, but another part of me knew it wasn't over yet. If I left it there, Lydia and her family would twist the story. They'd make me out to be unstable, overly sensitive, unreasonable. I couldn't let that happen. This wasn't just about me. It was about my mother's memory and everything she represented. I took a deep breath and turned to my dad. "I need to go back in there," I said. "What?" my sister blurted. "Why? You don't owe them anything." "I know," I replied, "but I'm not leaving this half finished. I need Lydia, her parents, and everyone else to hear it straight. I'm done. For good." My dad hesitated, then nodded. "If that's what you need to do, we've got your back." "No," I said, shaking my head. "This one's on me. I have to finish it alone." My sister looked like she wanted to argue but stayed quiet. I turned and walked back toward the restaurant. My stomach twisted, but my mind was steady. I wasn't walking back in there to cause another scene. I was walking back to end it. For good. People were murmuring to each other, casting quick glances toward the door as I stepped inside. Lydia was still standing at our table, her face pale and her eyes wide with shock. The moment she saw me, she straightened up. "Michael," she said, her voice tight. "What are you doing?" I ignored the question and walked directly to the front of the room where Jack and Donna sat, still looking far too self-satisfied for people who had just humiliated someone. Jack raised an eyebrow as I approached, clearly not expecting me to. Return, Donna gave me that same fake sweet smile she'd worn all night. "Back so soon?" Jack said sarcastically, smirking. I didn't respond. Instead, I turned to face the entire room. "Excuse me, everyone," I said, loud enough for every person to hear. The murmuring stopped instantly. All eyes locked on me. My heart was pounding, but I kept my voice steady and strong. "I have something I need to say." I glanced at Lydia, who now stood frozen, her hands clenched tightly in front of her. "I know this isn't the time or place you expected to hear something like this, but after what's happened tonight, I don't see any reason to wait." I paused, inhaled deeply, and spoke the words that had been building inside me for weeks. "This wedding is off." The room erupted. Gasps, whispers, the scraping of chairs. Everyone turned to the person next to them in disbelief. Lydia's jaw dropped. Her hands flew to her mouth. "Michael, no," she whispered. I held up a hand to stop her. The room fell silent again. Even the waitstaff stood frozen, unsure whether to keep working or wait for what would come next. "This isn't just about tonight," I said. "This is about the kind of family I was about to marry into. A family that doesn't respect me, doesn't respect my mother, and definitely doesn't share the values I was raised with. I won't spend my life being treated like this." Jack finally found his voice, his tone dripping with arrogance. "You're making a big mistake, kid. You're throwing away something great over nothing. I let out a dry, bitter laugh. Nothing? You think mocking my mom is nothing? You think treating me like a second-class citizen is nothing? No, Jack. The real mistake would be marrying into a family that looks down on me and the people I love. Donna looked like she might cry. Or maybe she was just embarrassed that her little event had gone sideways. Michael, she said softly, her voice trembling, let's not make rash decisions. We can talk about this tomorrow, after everyone's calmed down. No, I said. We're not talking tomorrow, we're not talking ever. This is over. I turned to Lydia one last time. Her face was soaked in tears. She looked like she was deciding whether to scream or beg. Without saying another word, I walked toward the exit, my footsteps echoing in the silent room. Just as I reached the door, I heard her call out, "Michael, please don't do this." I paused, my hand resting on the handle. Then I turned my head just enough to say, "I already did." Leaving that restaurant felt like tearing off a scab, sharp and painful, but freeing. The weight on my chest, the constant sense of not being good enough, of being quietly judged and subtly insulted. All of it fell away. It was over. The wedding. The lies. The shame. The performance. Done. The next morning, reality set in. My phone lit up with over 100 unread messages. Most were from Lydia, a few from Jack and Donna, and surprisingly, even some from their extended family, people I barely knew. The messages ran the emotional spectrum. Lydia's were desperate. "I'm sorry, Michael. I didn't mean to hurt you. Please just talk to me." Jack's, on the other hand, were aggressive. "You embarrassed us in front of everyone. You'll regret this." And Donna, she played the wounded mother figure. "I can't believe you would do this to Lydia. She didn't deserve it." I ignored every single one. By early afternoon, the knock I'd been expecting finally came. Lydia. I braced myself before opening the door. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her red eyes, her face blotchy with tears. She was still in the same dress from the night before, like she'd gone home and cried herself to sleep without changing. "Michael," she said softly, her voice quivering, "can we please talk?" I crossed my arms and leaned against the doorframe. "What's left to say, Lydia? I made myself pretty clear last night." She flinched like I'd slapped her, but she didn't back away. "I know you're angry, and you have every right to be," she said, her voice shaking. "But we can fix this. We can work through it." I shook my head slowly. "You still don't get it, do you? This isn't something we can just work through." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, her voice cracking. "I was scared, okay? I didn't know what to do." "Scared of what?" I asked, my frustration boiling over. "Of upsetting your parents? Of causing a scene?" She didn't respond. She just stood there crying, and I waited, hoping for anything, any sign that she truly understood the weight of what she'd done. But nothing came. Her eyes widened slightly as she stepped forward. "Please, Michael," she whispered. "Don't do this. We can make it work. I'll talk to my parents. I'll make them apologize. Just don't end it like this." I shook my head again. "It's not just about your parents, Lydia. It's about you. Last night showed me who you really are, and I can't ignore that anymore. I deserve better." She stood there staring at me, her expression crumbling as the truth sank in. Saturday afternoon, I was cleaning out my mom's keepsake box, a small wooden chest I'd kept since she passed. Inside were little treasures, her favorite necklace, the earrings she wore to church every Sunday, and most precious of all, a small, delicate locket. Inside it was a tiny picture of my grandmother. That locket had been passed down through generations in my family, mother to daughter. But before she died, my mom had given it to me. "One day," she said, "you'll know who the right person is to give this to." Since then, I had kept it safely tucked away. It wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was a piece of her, a thread that tied our family together. But that day, when I opened the box, the locket was gone. At first, I thought I was imagining things. I carefully searched through every corner of the box. Nothing. I checked the drawers, the shelf it sat on, even the floor around it. Still nothing. And then it hit me. Someone had taken it. Only a few people had been in my apartment recently. Family, a few close friends, and Lydia. She'd come by a few days after the breakup to return the engagement ring. Before leaving, she asked to use the bathroom. At the time, I didn't think twice. But now it all made sense. I grabbed my phone and texted her, "Did you take the locket from my mom's keepsake box?" A few minutes later, she replied, "What are you talking about?" I didn't believe her for a second. "You know exactly what I'm talking about. The locket my mom gave me. It's gone. You're the only one who's been in my apartment recently. Did you take it?" She didn't reply right away. But when she finally did, her message made my blood boil. I borrowed it because I wanted to keep a piece of her with me. I thought it would help me feel closer to you. Borrowed? Without asking? Without even telling me? I couldn't believe the audacity. I called her immediately. When she picked up, her voice was defensive, like she was the one being wronged. "Michael, it's not a big deal," she said. "I was going to give it back." "Not a big deal?" I snapped. "That locket has been in my family for generations. It's not some trinket you can just take because you're feeling sentimental. How could you even think that was okay?" "Just wanted to feel close to you," she said softly, her voice trembling, playing the sympathy card. "I didn't think you'd notice." "Of course I'd notice," I shouted. "It's my mom's, and the fact that you didn't even think to ask makes it worse." She began sobbing at that point, but I wasn't in the mood for sympathy. "Where is it?" I demanded. "It's at my parents' house," she admitted between sobs. "I didn't want to lose it, so I left it there for safekeeping." That was it. That was the final straw. You took something that didn't belong to you. Something that means more to me than you'll ever understand. And you just left it at Jack and Donna's house? I said coldly. "Are you kidding me?" "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Sorry doesn't cut it," I said. "I'm coming to get it. Now." An hour later, I was pulling up to Jack and Donna's front door. My fury had only intensified during the drive. By the time I knocked, I was ready to explode. Donna answered, and the moment she saw the expression on my face, that usual phony smile disappeared. "Michael," she said, her tone cautious. "What are you doing here?" "I'm here to get my mom's locket," I said, voice flat and firm. "Lydia told me it was here." Donna's expression shifted, flickering between confusion and irritation. "Lydia took a locket? Why would she—" "Just get it," I cut in. She squinted at me but stepped aside and let me in. A few minutes later, Lydia came down the stairs, holding the locket between her fingers. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her face streaked and pale, but I didn't care. All I saw was the locket dangling from her hand like it was some forgotten trinket. "Here," she said softly, holding it out. I snatched it from her grip and turned it over in my palm, inspecting every detail to make sure it was truly my mother's. Once I was certain, I shoved it deep into my pocket and turned toward the door. "Michael, wait," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I was only trying to keep it safe." "I said save it," I snapped, cutting her off mid-excuse. "You stole from me, Lydia, from my mother, as if what you and your family already did wasn't enough." Her face collapsed as fresh tears spilled, but I didn't stop. I walked straight out the door and slammed it behind me. In the days that followed, I blocked her number, erased every message, and shut down every way she could reach me. I was done with her, her parents, and the constant chaos they dragged into my life. Calling off the wedding had been one of the hardest things I'd ever done. But this was the final line she crossed, and it brought something I hadn't felt in months. Closure. I had stood up for myself, for my mother's memory, and for the principles she raised me on. And for the first time in a long time, I felt peace.